You know the Cavs are playing well when ESPN talk about them. ESPN don't ever like to talk about the Cavs. The Cavs could be playing on ESPN. ESPN don't talk about them. So the Cavs obviously is doing something historic now, and that finally gets ESPN to talk about them. Not just ESPN, right? We're not just talking about like somebody on one of their C shows talking about them. No, First Take segment with Stephen A. Smith talking about the Cavs. Is he hating already? Let's see.
I have no questions about their talent, and I'm a huge Donovan Mitchell fan. I wanted them in New York City. Ain't gonna never apologize for that.
Hey, I'm just letting you know Stephen A. gearing up for it. You know when Stephen A. gears up, right? When he starts giving you all this praise and starts calling your best player a baller, you already know.
Defensively, I get all of that. But this was the same team we saw get to the playoffs last year, ultimately losing to Boston. This is the same team that we're having questions about in terms of their sustained level of excellence. They ain't going undefeated. We all know that. But Kenny Atkinson being added to this team, he's a hell of a coach. A lot of people felt he should have never been let go by Brooklyn years ago, that maybe things would have been different with KD, Kyrie, and the rest of the crew had he stayed there instead of them getting.
All right. First thing I want to talk about, is this the same team? Right? I know that this is a similar roster to the team that lost to Boston, but it's not really the same team because the Cavs went into that Boston series with a lot of injuries. Now, we'll see how they hold up against Boston next week, but it's not the same team. I mean, Kenny Atkinson's presence alone makes this a different team. And here's another thing that I feel like we always forget to account for, especially when it comes to young basketball teams. When your best players are under 25 in the NBA, it's a very real possibility that you can change nothing, but those players' development jumps to such a point that it just makes you a different team. Right? Like when that player is ready to make that leap, that changes how that team is perceived. We see this with literally every star player in the NBA. Like you can even bring it up with the Boston Celtics. You could have made the argument before the Boston Celtics won it all. That's the same team that lost in the finals. And that would have been a proper argument. But it doesn't account for the fact that those same guys developed over those couple of years. Jaylen Brown got better. Jason Tatum got better. And now we're talking about the Celtics as world beaters when a couple of years ago, we thought that the Celtics were unserious. Rewind this conversation back to the Cleveland Cavaliers. What makes the Cavs better this year is not just Kenny Atkinson. It's the fact that they are healthy. Right, the Cavs' best three players, Evan Mobley, Darius Garland, and Donovan Mitchell, all missed 25% or more of the season last year. And even when they were back, they were working back through injuries, which obviously affected Donovan Mitchell, you could tell at the end of the season, and clearly affected Darius Garland when he came back from that jaw injury. He lost 20 pounds. That alone, those two dudes coming back from those injuries alone is enough to say that this isn't the same team that played Boston the last time they went up against them. You add on top of that, that not only this isn't the same team from an injury standpoint that played Boston, this is not the same team from a schematic standpoint when it comes to their head coach and Kenny Atkinson, who seems like a clear upgrade over JB Bickerstaff, but also it looks like each of those three individual players have gotten better in this offense, developing as young players. Donovan Mitchell looks way better this year than he did at parts of last year. Darius Garland looks like an all-star again. Honestly, he looks better than an all-star this year. Like this looks like the best year of Darius Garland's career so far. Evan Mobley has made the leap as an offensive player. Right now, he's averaging 18. He's more consistent with the three-point shot. He's more consistent with the ball in his hands. Like he's a different player than who he was last year. It's not like so dramatically different that he looks like year 9 Giannis out there or anything like that. But he went from being a player who was spotty offensively, but a great defender, to a great defender who you can run your offense through, who can facilitate and is allowed to facilitate to his highest ability, and also a player who can get you 18 points. That's as good as trading for somebody. Is the development of Evan Mobley there, right? Getting Darius Garland back to playing at a high level and more is as good as trading for a player like this. Team still has Max Strus, who needs to come back, who will be able to pass and shoot and do all the things that the Cavs really need their players to do. If you look at the ball movement of this team, that's unlocked because Evan Mobley's being put in a position to utilize his facilitator skills. Saying this is the same team as last year is a bit of a reduction of what the Cavs are doing. They're not 13-0 because they're the same team from last year. They're 13-0 and already have won more than 25% of their wins from last year just a few weeks into the season, not because they're the same team, but because they're quite different than last year. It's just not in the obvious ways, right? They didn't trade for James Harden or something like that. So you're not going to give them the credit, but this is just as good as making those big visual changes. You just got to look a little bit harder to find them.
I just don't question them. The rest of the crew, I'm questioning. I'm not saying they can't play. They can play. They can ball. I got mad respect for Cleveland. And right now, they look like the biggest threat to the Boston Celtics. But I got to see more. Come to me 60-plus games into the season, and I'll give you a better answer to that question.
That is a great point, but we are...
Come to me 60 games plus. And see, if the Knicks were 10-2. Okay, he talking about how Cat is changing the league and all of this stuff, but now the Cavs, he needs 60 games. The New York Knicks could win 3 games in a row. Stephen A. gonna be on here in Knicks gear with Spike Lee on the show talking about, man, this is finally the year where the Knicks gonna win it all. But the Cavs, he needs 60 games. 60. That's it. Like, can we do 30? 30 is a good sample. 60? No, you need more than half of the season. And then what are you going to move the goalpost to? We already got a preview of what Stephen A. going to move the goalpost to in this clip, so I'll just let it play.
Seeing some signs of why this season might be different than last season or the year before. When you think about Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, we know how good they are on the ball, pick and roll.
Yep.
But what they've done unlocking Evan Mobley, and that was the big thing around the league this past summer. I reported on it. Is the thought around the league, are they going to split up the backcourt? Are they going to split up the big men? And you have to give the Cavs front office, that organization, credit. They doubled down on that roster. They hired Kenny Atkinson. He felt like that roster was built for him.
Okay.
And he came in, and he's put the ball in Evan Mobley's hand. We're not seeing Evan Mobley staying in the corner anymore. Right. He's averaging 18, 10, and 2 blocks a game because he has the ball in his hands, 24% usage rating. That's by far the most he's had the ball in his hands over the course of his career. And so he's a big factor in this. To me, he is the X factor of this roster.
I like what Shams is saying here. He's giving the Cavs a lot of credit for what they're able to do. And honestly, it looks like he's really been paying attention to how the Cavs have the success. It's a lot of ball movement. It's a lot of getting the ball into Evan Mobley's hands. And I think what a lot of people misunderstand about Evan Mobley and the offense running somewhat through Evan Mobley is not that, oh, we're going to give him the ball and let him get on the wing and try to get a jumper every time. Is that Evan is really smart with the basketball and he's a really good facilitator. So it doesn't have to end with a shot from Evan Mobley if you initiate with Evan Mobley. A lot of times you initiate the offense with Evan Mobley, it ends up with the shot for like Donovan Mitchell or Darius Garland because of how the Cavs move the ball. And I think Shams did a really good, Shams did a really good job of understanding that, and I got to give him credit there for that take. Let's see what Stephen A. got to say.
To ask for you, though. The ball in Evan Mobley's hands. Brother can play. I like him a lot. What I'm wondering about, if you're the opposition, as the season wanes and the playoffs approach, and you're the Cleveland Cavaliers and you come addicted to that. Remember, the more the ball is in his hands, the less it is in Donovan Mitchell's hands, the less it is in Darius Garland's hands, stuff like that. is that playing into the hands of the competition? We got to ask ourselves that question, because you doing it early in the regular season is one thing. You're doing it come postseason time when they get an opportunity to game plan for you and you're in a best-of-7 series. Now, that's a different animal.
And
All right, so that's where Stephen A is going to move the goalpost to after 60 games. Let's say the Cavs have like a 50-10 record or something, 60 games into the season. We now know where Stephen A is going to move that goalpost to. Is putting the ball in Evan Mobley's hand actually a detriment to the offense? And again, it's not, because the Cavs offense can just stop and become Darius Garland ball or Donovan Mitchell ball. They still have the ability to do that. But what they can do now when they run the offense through Evan Mobley is get those two guys and other guys on the court better looks, right? Like, it's not like they're taking the ball out of Darius Garland's hands. It's not like they're taking the ball out of Donovan Mitchell's hands. It's not like they're stopping them from being scorers. I mean, just look at their averages, look at how they're shooting, and look at how they're performing for this Cavs team. And you would see that they're not stopping that from happening. They're just allowing Evan Mobley to have a bit more of a fingerprint in this game. And there are going to be some series in the NBA playoffs where that's going to make a ton of sense to do, where they can't really stop the facilitation coming from the center position or the 4 or the 5. There are going to be some series where, Donovan got to be big boy and he got to cook, right? Like, that's just what it's going to have to be. You're going to have to put the pieces in the oven. And there's going to be times where that's going to have to be Darius Garland, right? Or both of them, plus Karis LeVert. The thing is that the Cavs are versatile and they have that ability to get in there. Basically, what I got from this segment is that Stephen A doesn't actually believe in the Cavs, but he's not going to go out and say he doesn't believe in a team that's 13-0, because that would sound crazy. So he's trying to kind of hide his take about the Cavs by, instead of praising them for what they do well or bringing up and highlighting what they do well, putting in these little pills here of things he's going to try to criticize them for going forward if they stumble just a little bit, right? And that's kind of what I think. I don't think Stephen A really a believer, but that's fine, right? That's why you got to beat Boston. That's why you got to beat some of these teams. I know they already beat LA, they already beat Golden State, but you got to beat, as many top level teams as you can if you're the Cavs. And you're not going to play too many because the East is not that strong this year. But you got to beat those teams when they come up. And the more you do that, the more and more Stephen A will move this goalpost, and then eventually, have to submit to being wrong on some level. But that's my thoughts on this whole thing. Let me know what y'all think in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have a better night. Peace.